What's up, squad? It's Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to hop on because yesterday, unintentionally, I actually fell into watching the Republican debate. And I say unintentionally because I didn't think it was going to be very interesting without the candidate Donald Trump running. But for those that don't know, American presidential debates is probably some of the best TV around. And the longer it goes on, the better it gets as the competition heats up. And I do prefer watching the Republican debates to the Democratic debates, and that's usually because Republicans are a little bit their whole shtick, their whole um, bargaining or how they induce their voters is by trying to create non-governmental way to solve issues or be a little bit more creative, etc. With the Democrats, it's just whatever problem they have, every solution is going to be more government spending. So Republicans do try to like move things around, bring up charter school alternative options. So it's a little bit more creative in my opinion. But so when I do watch them, I probably would lean more towards a Republican debate just because I would like to. I'm interested in different ideas and how people see things and what their team has been working on to provide solutions outside of just charging more money at the federal government level for solutions and to help people in their day-to-day lives. Nevertheless, I think it's complete theater, and I'm really not too much into the politics, but I think as a culture and a cultural phenomenon and as a societal phenomenon, so for cultural and social reasons, I think democratic debates are extremely insightful. It gives you a real view into what the demographics of a nation value, what they appreciate. Because this is reflecting in their candidate. These people are at the height of the game when it comes to influence. They were able to get on a presidential stage in one of the world's most developed countries. So it would be erroneous to assume that they're not bright because the stage is so high. Basically, they've been able to get others to trust them, which I think is a very valuable skill set to have in this world. But I'll quickly go through some of the candidates and just some of my initial thoughts. I haven't, like I said, I wasn't following it closely. I basically was just took a 5 minute break and I turned on the TV and I was like, wow, everybody was talking about the Republican debate. And I was like, well, might as well watch it. So it was 8 candidates. And I'll briefly go through, I don't know, a couple details about each candidate from my point of view and what they present to the overall debate. So I'll talk about the governor out of North Dakota, Doug Burgum, and Asa Hutchinson, the governor out of Arkansas. So Doug Burgum, he's a tech billionaire, I believe. He was able to sell off his company, became elected a governor of North Dakota, a relatively oil-rich state, and him and both Hutchinson seem to be in a typical Republican mode, for lack of better phrasing, extremely conservative. They basically fall on the line, whether that's going to be pro-life, in a lot of their views. Nothing really pops out about them. They are not the most charismatic people on the stage, at least at this stage of the game. So it'll be interesting to see how they unfold. Hutchinson was part of the Bush administration, and I think that's probably one of the worst names to have attached to your name is being attached to the George W. Bush administration. Just because I really think that administration left a bad taste in the global world mouth as well as the American people. So I think that's going to be a headwind that they're going to face. And who knows if they get that far. As I said, really don't get gritty until the votes start to come up, the Iowa caucus, etc. So when the votes start coming up, that's when people really, really put the pressure on. Right now, it's kind of like just jab. But as the closer you get to the actual election time, you're going to start seeing the haymakers come out. And what I mean by that is people are going to start digging in your past. People are really going to try to muddy your name. And they're really going to put a magnifying glass to your life and things you've done just to try to draw attention to your downside to get votes from you. So those two, I put them in that bucket. There were Mike Pence, the former VP, another traditional guy. The thing with Mike Pence is he was in the Donald Trump administration, or President Trump's administration, the number two guy in that administration as the VP, the next in line. So he can always rest on that laurels, but I do think him running is him trying to really put himself in his own lane. I think as a VP, he did what was supposed to be done. Not drag the administration name through the dirt, help get things done, and basically not cause too many waves, so to speak. But I do think that he's not necessarily ideologically aligned with Donald Trump, and he played that backseat role in that administration. And I think he do want to push more of a conservative agenda. I know he's out of the state of Indiana, if that speaks more. Whereas I don't think Trump was a real big typical molded conservative. I think he was relatively fluid, especially when it comes to the social issues. He was out of New York. I don't think Pence is that type of person. They got Governor Christie, the former governor of New Jersey. Like, Christie used to be huge about maybe three presidential elections ago. You know, he came out, he was snappy, fast talking New Jersey guy that spoke his mind, etc. But I think he didn't run. It was Obama's second term, and he didn't run for that one because a lot of people thought, Obama was too strong. And he did get in for the Trump election. So what was that? It'd be 2016. So he did get in for the Trump election, and the flavor passed, and that speaks to politics. So that would have been 2016. So that means 2012 would have been the second Obama term, where he was real big in that election cycle, but he didn't run on the Republican side. And he tried to run in 2016, but by then the boat had sailed. So it's kind of seemed like, I don't want to say it's past his time, because Christie, he's known for getting some good sound bites. As well, he has a okay, decent record in New Jersey. I know it was like a big bridge scandal that he was, his name came up in, or his administration came up in as well. So I can say he can surprise you, but I don't think he's no longer the flavor of the Republican Party. There's Nikki Haley. I have great appreciation for Nikki Haley, not because of anything she represents, but just because she's just a willer dealer, and she's that new era Republican. She comes from Indian descent, out of South Carolina. I remember when they was tearing down a statue, she was in favor of that, which was very interesting coming from a southern state. But she stood against, she was for getting rid of some of the statues that may have been more aligned to South Carolina, more contentious or racist past, in some of people's opinion. And then from there, she's just highly ambitious. She had to get in the Trump administration, so I know she made her way in the Trump administration. But Trump threw in the UN, get her out of his White House. She went to go sit on Boeing. Boeing had some issues at the board of director level, and she stepped away. So she's definitely an insider, but she tries to come off like she's not an insider. But she's an insider. She's such an insider. There's Vivek Ramaswamy. So this guy, and this is what I talk about the insight. I really don't know much about him other than he's a quick talker. And from a person of my generation, I lived through Barack Obama, so I've had my fill of the smooth talkers. I know their style. He basically is a successful businessman, and he's been seeing the success, and a lot of people see him kind of as the up and comer, the guy to beat. I don't think he's been put under the microscopic lens enough at this point. So who knows what story is going to come out about him, etc. as the election line comes closer. He's kind of taking an outsider lane, especially with Trump not on the stage. But like I said, he doesn't really have a strong political background. I always think the people that, if you want to know people that can get things done, I would say Congress people. Like, I think LBJ pushing civil rights against and for the Democratic Party of his day, or James K. Polk, one of my favorite presidents, based off of his accomplishments, pretty much changing the face of America, adding the most land outside of the Louisiana Purchase, but mostly coming west of the Mississippi. Like, these were presidents that can get things done, and they had a lot of congressional experience. So I think that congressional experience, like, I think Biden, for whatever the flaws, he's definitely a insider, but his administration gets things done. And that's because when you're in Congress, you understand how the federal government works, how to will and deal, the people that you need to put pressure on and how to put pressure on those people, or people you have to persuade and how you know how to persuade those people. I really think congressmen have the insider lane on that. So if you just want to get stuff done, I always think congressmen people are probably most qualified. But especially in the Republican field, they're really trying to go that anti-establishment route. That's what Donald Trump represented. So I don't know who the Republicans going to vote for, but that's kind of like my view on the situation with Ramaswamy. I don't trust his background. Don't know what skills he really have, what he expects to get done. He just talks a really good game, and I'm really not big on talkers personally. So we'll see how that play out. There's also Tim Scott, the congressman out of South Carolina as well. So him and Nikki Haley have some history there. And I don't know, he seems like a decent guy, but there isn't really anything. Like I said, he's more of an older version. As far as when I think about those older versions of presidential candidates, they were a little bit more or less on charisma. I just don't think you can really get elected in American presidential debates unless you're super establishment like Joe Biden, or you're highly charismatic. So when I look at Trump, when I look at Obama, even George W. was charismatic for his followers, and Bill Clinton, etc. Ronald Reagan. You have to go all the way back to what, like George H.W. Bush, and people will say he wasn't the most charismatic person, but a lot of people fell for Reagan, so because of his charisma. So I think that charisma is a really big part, and it speaks to American culture and what Americans look for when they turn the TV on to see their leader, for lack of better phrasing. So I don't see Tim Scott popping off the screen. I think that's his biggest challenge. He's definitely going to have to rely on saying, "Hey, I can win South Carolina," but I wish he has some bigger accomplishments that he can hang his hat on, and stand out for, because I don't know if it's necessarily going to be his charisma that really propels him forward. And lastly, it was Governor Ron DeSantis out of Florida. Supposedly, so Florida has been this refuge for freedom lovers, low taxes. A lot of people fled to Florida, especially during this last 5 to 10 years. That's for real estate. They have some pretty good state taxes regarding income. So some people go down there for weather, and a lot of pensioners go down there as well. So Florida has been one of like the go-to states, primarily Arizona, Texas, Florida. A lot of people going there, and then of course you have your other southern states, but Arizona, Texas, and Florida really stand out for being big magnets. And Florida was one of those magnets under him, so he's obviously saying Florida attracted all these people, all this investment, and it's growing because of his leadership, and that's what he's hanging his hat on. But sitting on the stage, it really is not anything that I thought that made him formidable. Just the way he presented himself in his arguments, I couldn't say he didn't seem like a hard charger. And I think, especially in the Republican states, people are really looking for visionaries, people that are really going to be a trailblazer in this field. And I felt as though I didn't get that from DeSantis. So he's supposed to be the front runner with Trump out. So he's supposed to be the top guy on the stage. And of course, that leads us to Donald Trump, who wasn't there, and I believe was doing an interview with Tucker Carlson simultaneously, I believe. I didn't see it. But for those that don't know, Trump appeal is everybody hates him in the establishment, which is why his followers love him, because they see him as anti-establishment. If people from the left and right hate him, he must genuinely be outside of the establishment, and they see Trump as a sledgehammer to the system. A lot of Americans don't like business as usual. They don't like the war. They don't like the big government spending. They don't like the cronyism. Corruption, for lack of a better phrase, and the nepotism, etc. And Trump is seen as the anti-version of that. And it's almost to a mythological level, because he did do a lot of things in a very, he did change the way things were being done. He tried to reach across the aisle, tried to actually solve problems. Now, whether people appreciate those solutions is one way or another, but he didn't go through the typical way of doing business in Washington, D.C. That's what it looked like from the outside in. So when he gets on the stage, it's definitely going to change the dynamics, but it's going to be really hard to get in that lane, because he's not, I don't think he's going for the establishment vote. So all these other candidates, probably except Ramaswamy, and I don't think he's going to hold the light to Trump, because Trump actually was elected president before, and he has a record he can stand on as president, and his supporters support that record. But outside of that, a lot of these guys, to me, is looking to fight for the establishment vote, so they're going to be chopping that up, and we'll see who the Republicans voters eventually pick to represent them. But it was decent for what it was. I know it's going to heat up, and I know that it's going to be even more engaging and interesting as we get closer and closer to real election time. So that's my thoughts. Comment below. I'd like to hear what you thought if you saw it, if anybody stood out to you. As always, like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.